This is Dr. Cecily, and this is my leadership series. Welcome, YouTube community. Thank you for joining my YouTube channel. And I'm new to this. I thank you. I've already done 3 series, 3 different videos on the Atlanta child murders. I just got interested in it when I seen the first commercial. I think it was the commercial about the documentary, and I jumped right on it because I wanted to see what was going on, because I was up north and I worked the sheriff's department, the Wayne County Sheriff's Department, as officer and a sergeant, and I kind of know a little bit about the police mentality, and I also know that the police are protected by immunity and the immunity law, so that needs to be changed. But with this one, I want to talk about. This series is going to be about me profiling the serial killer, because remember, out of from 1979 to 1981, no one was charged. No one was charged except for Wayne Edward Williams, and he was not charged for those 28 children that was killed, well, actually murdered and missing children, because they only found, I think one was missing. Now remember, Wayne Williams was only charged for 2 adult males murders. He was never charged for those 28. And see, that's one of the things I didn't know from being up north. I thought because they was using the fiber evidence, which I talked about in the first video. I think the second video, I talked about some of the suspects. And then the third video, I'll talk about the mother's voices, because I thought it was important that the mother's voices be heard. Now, when I first did the first video, before I looked at the documentary, which Will Packard is doing, and of course, our Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottom, she was the one that opened the case, but it was I forgot her name, Naima. She's the Atlanta Live news caster that brought it to our mayor, Atlanta mayor, Keisha Lance Bottom's attention about how these mothers wanted a memorial for their children. Then when I delved in, I found out, well, Wayne Williams was never charged. But then when you look at when I first looked at the documentary, and it was very clean, non-biased, and the white FBI agent was saying that, oh, well, and some of the police department was saying, well, since Wayne Williams got caught, nobody else was doing the murders. But if you listen to my last video with the mother's voices, they said, and the black detective said, it was more than one murder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my profile on this series. I'm gonna do my profile on what or how, and give you a profile of the serial killer in my mind and the research that I did. Now we know that from slavery even up to recently, like in the 1920s, they were doing, even when they said we could vote and everything, they were still killing us for little minor, hanging us for little minor fractions. So the modus of operandi for the Klan has always been intimidation and fear, and they've always used hanging or cutting. Not only did they do hanging, they would go further. They'd cut off an ear, they burn the body, they'll just do something to go beyond the murder to still fear in the black community, and to let them know that, no, how dare you challenge my status quo. So I'm going to go back with this, because this was my first theory. This is before I even looked at the documentary with Will Packard, because I said in my mind, it probably was a police officer. So let's get to this right here. And this is the Colorado KKK.
Grandmother, she violated the law, and by George, that's the kind of public official we needed. For instance, a packing.
This was the mayor coming against KKK.
Being a Ku Kluxer himself, the jury lists were made up in the office of Dr. Locke down on Glenarm Street. I would say 75% of the police department belonged to the Klan.
You didn't get a promotion if you weren't a member of the Klan.
Who would prosecute his own grandmother if she violated the law, and by George, that's the kind.
So This is Colorado KKK, and what they're saying is they're talking about how the Klan came to power in 1920, and how the Klan would intimidate the voters, how they became 75% was in the police department. That's what I thought it was funny when they did that KKK investigation during the Atlanta child murders, when the fact that you were infiltrating the KKK, why did you infiltrate the police officers? Because I do know the police also have this organization culture of me, of us against the world, because they feel that they're putting their lives on the line. And then add on the hatred and the bias and the racism, then this is what you get. So you hear in that tape, 75% were police officers. Now let's get to this right here, because this is very important. How I said that the police officers, what they're talking about, the police, the Klan, they just took off their robe and put on the police officer thing. And this is before I even seen this video right here. So let me go back to here.
Boycotting was fantastic. People sensing power. They worked through the Republican Party. They took possession of the Republican Party. They worked in the precincts. Their leaders attended the caucuses, and they gained control, practically 100% of the Republican Party at that time. The membership increased very rapidly, and the members of the city council, from the mayor on down, all the city officials, with very few exceptions from members of the Klan. You couldn't get elected to anything in the city and county of Denver unless you...
So there you go, because you see that that the KKK infiltrated, and this is called this video is called Colorado KKK, and it's talking about how it was the rise of the KKK and how they were all in the voting, they were intimidating people, they were anti-Semitic, they were anti-black, they were anti-immigrants, and they really had that 100%er type of thing. If you were people of color and you were not white, 100% white, then you were a threat. So this has always been, and my point is this, is that Ku Klux Klan has always used their signature killing as strangulation. They've always did that. So let me go to here. I want to talk about, because he makes a very important issue about, this is the museum on the lynchings. Let me see. I didn't get the sound on that, but let me just give you this guy's viewpoint right here.
Urging law enforcement to brutalize people, that comes out on us. So we have zero protection. They can come and blow our brains out at any given time, and we can't really do anything. Actually, America is the only country in the world where you can kill people outside of war and legally get away with it. You can't kill nobody in no other country and get away with it. You can't do that in North Korea. You can't do it in Russia. You can't just go and kill somebody and then just walk away and get acquitted.
So that's why I know one of my YouTubers had made a comment, and they were talking about hollering about reparations. And I said, true, but that's true. And they talked about the Ku Klux killings. I said, but true. But the thing about it is we need to pray for righteous leaders to get in place so these laws can change. Officers should not be able to kill unarmed black person, but it's a part of how you feel about blacks. You do not value blacks. And I'm talking about for those who hate us and want us dead. Now, I'm going to go to the profile real quick. And this is what I came up. I didn't come up with this by myself. I kind of went at, I listened to, his name was the two brothers. He's Jim Clement and I think Tim Clement. They're brothers, and one was a former, they both were former FBI agents. But this is what I came up with. Now, I thought about how I believe that this profile of the serial killer is, he's probably from the ages of 29 to maybe 37. That's my take. Probably very, very educated. He's probably not a Yale or Naval Academy or from the prestigious top 10 schools. but he's probably very, very smart, and he's a KKK. Now, remember the leadership. It was the GBI and the Atlanta Homicide that destroyed that 1800 file. They destroyed that. And you notice in my last video that that 1800 file of the investigations of KKK was never presented in trial. It was never presented. So that was evidence. In fact, the evidence was destroyed. Okay. And I can't remember which mother it was, but on one of my videos, I talked about a mother. She said that one of the officers came to her and told her, look, this person is we know who did it, but this person is very, very powerful, got a very, very powerful family. And even though the officer said that the guy was kind of mentally ill, I don't think so. I think they were trying to figure out how they were going to present a case if it came up. But of course, that never happened. But that never happened. So we see that he's probably a 27, probably from 23 to 37. He was Ku Klux Klan. He was he's probably very bright, but he never made the Yale or the top 10 prestigious school. But I do want to say this, that he probably came into the police department because it was so easy. Even in Colorado, the KKK, that video, it talked about how 75% of the officers, if they were KKK, they were likely to get promoted. Now, we noticed that, let's talk about the modus of operandi. Modus operandi is the method of how somebody operates. It's the way that things are done. Now, we know that for intimidation and for the Klan, it's always been hangings. It's always been hangings. And I want to show you this little clip right here because this is so powerful. And I like to go to this museum because this is this guy. He did a museum, and the museum it's about black hangings, and he has like over, I think, 4,000 hangings where they actually have replicas of a being and the person's name to represent the hangings, and that's just some of them.
Designed to teach people more about what he calls the ugly parts of American history. It traces the African American experience from enslavement to mass incarceration.
Slavery doesn't end in 1865, it just evolved.
Stevenson wants people to understand that lynchings were not just brutal footnotes in history. They reflected a belief in racial differences that reinforced segregation in the 1950s and 60s, and, he says, has resulted in a pattern of unequal justice today.
Now we live in a landscape where you see young black boys and men being rounded up. 1 in 3 black male babies born in this country is expected to go to jail or prison.
You actually think that slavery and lynchings led to African Americans being disproportionately represented in the criminal justice system?
Yes, I do. And I think actually it's not a hard thing to understand. You know, I
think it is a hard thing to understand for people who think people get locked up. People are locked up because they commit crimes.
About 13% of the people illegally in possession of drugs in this country are black. That's about our proportion of the population. You know what percentage are arrested? That's about 35%. That is an excellent.
So we already know that there's inequality and systematic racism. But like I said, the person's from 25 to 37. We know the modus of operandi is always be strangle and asphyxiation. It's still cutting off the blood flow where the person dies. Now, we know that's always been the method of the Ku Klux Klan. But even in that video, when I was looking at the museum of those lynches, I noticed that they also talked about how they would burn the body, cut off body parts, and we know that happened with some of the children. Now, remember Angel, her mother, Venus, she was the one that said her daughter, she was told that her daughter was tied to a tree, and that her ear was cut off. Now, just remember that. Now that sounds like method to me, a modus operandi of the Ku Klux Klan, and he probably was a KKK, and also he's probably somewhere in he could be in politics, or he can be up in the chain food or high up, and maybe a warden in a because you know we got a lot of debtors prisons, so he could be at private prisons, he could be at private probation, because a lot of the I know with Wayne County was in a lot of cities, and I think Atlanta, they also contract out their probation officer to office and their services to private organizations. Now, probation organization, a lot of these private probation organizations are ran by probably retired officers or attorneys and of that nature. So they also said, Jim Clement and his brother also said that killers also do other things other than the modus operandi. Now we know that the modus operandi for most of the children, because when I looked at that report, it was strangle, 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 strangle. Now, or asphyxiation on their death records. But they went on to describe how the satisfaction of ritual is what they like to do. And they have a signature killing. So we know that signature killing in this case has to be the cutting off the body parts. Remember, there was no sexual things done to the kids, but the kids had things missing. Like Venus Angel's daughter had her ear cut off, and not only that, they also had they were mentioning, some of the mothers mentioned how that hypodermic needles where their penises were. So penis was missing, organs were missing. And also they talked about how these serial killers are such a nice guy. You notice a lot of these killers, they're very nice people, and they're very charity giving. So, and then too, the killings and even the body parts could be some kind of ritual where they got some kind of status or some acknowledgement from their KKK partners. So his name was Jim Clement. He's a retired FBI profiler. He did Criminal Minds. And Tim Clement, he's a retired FBI. He helped with the NCIS Los Angeles. So I got some of this from them. But they say the way, and then there's another thing, the way that the victims are disposed, they got those in different, the FBI have different, they call them pathways. And this is the way that they identify the bodies. Or identify the serial killer. Now remember, the serial killer was just throwing the body any kind of way all over the city of Atlanta. But then after they found out that they were collecting fibers, then they start throwing them over in the river. But this is some of the pathways. The pathway 1 is to transport the body and then bury it, or either transport the body. In this case, pathway 1 would be applicable because the body sometimes was transported. It wasn't killed right there, but transported and then thrown into the water. And the FBI profilers, Jim Clement and his brother Tim Clement, they stated in the video that the way that the victims are disposed with pathway 1 is usually they're the Caucasian. They're usually from 24 to 43 of age. They usually work full time. Okay. Now pathway 2 is usually they transport the body and then they just dump it. But that happened too. Then pathway 3 is leaving the body at the crime scene. Now, and then pathway 4 is disposing the body usually, and then it's disposing the body. They also, in pathway 4, is called to display. So they dispose in the body, even though the person may be killed there, or they may be murdered at another place. They dispose the body, but they display the body in such a way that would put the person that finds the body at shock. Like depose the body, or they put the body in a certain way. So, but with that, there's 4 pathways, and I could see 3 of these. In fact, all of these were done. So that would leads me to think that this may have been one of the serial killers. Could have been an officer, Could have been an officer, could have worked in GBI. He's probably non-retired. He's probably up in the you know, either he gained really power and prestige with the KKK, or he's in politics or somewhere. But like I said, the mother said, and I'm gonna close with that. The mother said that more than likely that it was somebody in the police department, they believe. Now remember too, when they were talking about, well, it had to be somebody that's easy to come in and out, well, I could think about even Detroit and the projects. Well, if you wasn't black, then you were a police officer. So that's another thing. So you wouldn't think it's strange to see a police officer in the hood. Okay. So that is my, oh, this is another thing too. Sadistic. Sadistic personality. A lot of serial killers have sadistic personalities. And in the psychological manual, the sadistic personality that's attached to a serial killer is that they enjoy sufferings of others. And it's a way to control and dominate others. And they're usually loners. But with this being said, we have found out, even with the loners, we have found a lot of times these people have families. And these people are they're charitable in the community. But like I said, that's my profile of the serial killers. And if you have any suggestions of who the other, because we believe, like the mothers, I believe, like the mothers in the black detectives, there were other serial killers. So besides Wayne Edward Williams, I believe that he was involved, and I believe that there was an officer involved with these killings. And so they can easily go in and out. They can keep track of and control of the investigation. They can destroy evidence. They could have firsthand information of what's going to happen next. Because you remember, a task force was not formed until I don't know how many bodies were killed and murdered. And I think the celebrities that came in, they brought attention to it, and then that's when the FBI came in. So that's my take. Let me know what you think. Who do you think, what is your profile of the serial killer for the Atlanta child murders? Because remember, this is a new investigation. It's going to be over a span of 7 counties. I'm sure some people are going to have to be charged for destroying evidence. That's police evidence. They destroyed those records and those videotapes. Somebody needs to be held accountable. And these were police officers, and these were people over the task force. And so there was another failure of injustice to not only the mothers, but to the kids that have no recognition. So with that being said, let me know what you think. What's your profile of the serial killer for the Atlanta child murders? And just follow me and share and like. And I thank you for joining our channel, and God bless.